So, welcome to another episode. Today we have Mark Christensen on, who is an advocate for fungus theory and is an author, with his book being called Fungus Theory of Conscious Growth. So, welcome to today's show, Mark.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's very early in the morning, but I'm wide awake.
What time is it there then?
It is 7 o'clock in the morning, and
Okay.
I write until 2 in the morning usually. So it's early for me, but it feels good. Thanks for having me here.
I mean, as a writer myself, I find that sometimes that late at night it tends to be you get more into flow state with your writing than you would have during the day for some reason because maybe everyone's asleep and your mind is more focused, I find.
Yeah, they both have their advantages from my experience. Because you get into a grind uh, after about 8 o'clock, and then you just keep grinding away. So a lot of great things happen, but then again, you're really fresh in the morning, and you come up with a lot of things you wouldn't come up with normally during the hustle and bustle of day.
So you're probably writing something new, but I just want to talk a bit more about your fungus theory book. So what exactly is it? What is fungus theory?
Well, the idea and the evidence are starting to show that uh, all of life on Earth, anything that divides a cell, came from one single original fungus about 2 to 3 billion years ago. And it's called Opisthokonta, and it's a evolved uh, it's an evolved fungus from eukaryota, which is evolved from prokaryota. I don't know if you know all those terms, but there is a specific fungus that was both fungus and animal at one time, and the original fungus was all plant and animal together, which thrived for a long time and found its roots in our and developed the soil on Earth. By the way, there wasn't any soil here when it originated; it was just rock and water. So to get soil, you have to have something that can grow in cloud cover. With the Earth was cloud covered, it rained for a million years in the beginning, so there was no photosynthesis uh, to start any life with. So mushroom is like the ultimate entity to really start growing anything at all that's going to be of substance later on, like you and I. So everything originated from an original fungus. There was a split from plant and animal. If I start talking too fast, slow me down.
It's
But
fine.
so the
I like the rants. It helps to get a lot of information out, and really
okay,
drive home your point. But one of the things you said there was it was both plant and animal, if I'm not mistaken.
yes. So the original fungus. So there was only bacteria before this. Bacteria evolved into eukaryota, and eukaryota evolved into the original fungus, which is kind of alien-like, and it's both plant and animal equally. So
But
it's
how,
kind of
how can
three
that be the
things.
case? How can it be
Well, there's
both
evidence.
plant and animal?
Well, because you're thinking of animal as like a bear or a dog, but back then, before before animals actually evolved, it was the substance of the fungus itself was both plant and animal equally.
But in what sense though? Because it's quite it's a statement that, again, as you said, has connotations for everyone listening. One might think, oh, well, it was a bear, as you said. So can you just detail that a little bit more as to how it was classed as both, or is it just a definition that creates that sort of ambiguity?
I'm not clearing your question, but this is just this is already documented science and biology where they have found these elements, and they've been able to carbon date these things back to about 2 billion years ago, between 2 billion and 3 billion years ago, of an original fungus. This is before any plants and animals. You have to imagine a rocky planet with ocean. It's overheated, uh, so it's extremely hot, and it cloud covered the entire Earth. So we're basically kind of a little mini Venus, and Venus is 400 and 700 degrees on its surface. So the temperature of Earth was very hot. And it's a perfect incubated state, or kind of like a petri planet, like a petri dish, but a planet formed petri dish. It's perfect for baking the initial ingredients is for all of life to then start flourishing on this particular planet. And by the way, really quickly, the reason why this method is because whenever you're going to have rock and water anywhere in the universe, you're going to want this to ignite. This is how life would ignite anywhere where there was water long enough. But systematically on Earth, it's quite amazing to understand that this cloud-covered planet couldn't grow anything but a fungus. So there's rock, water, bacteria. Bacteria is feeding on itself. So there's no plant life, and you have bacteria just the feeding frenzy on itself was to the point where it had to become something else in order to survive eating itself, which was eventually this fungus. And it's almost like a design if you think about it. So to survive this feeding frenzy on bacteria, you develop a multicellular, instead of single cells, a multicellular animal called fungus that's both plant and animal together. It's still kind of a mystery, but it did exist. They even carbon date when the split occurs with this original fungus, where plant life splits away, leaving fungus and animal for another 500 million years. And then the animal splits away from the fungus. So you have three elements now. You have plant, fungus, and animal. And this is about 1.5, 2 billion years ago. So fungus continues on evolving on its own, and it's the kingdom that we see today. And this was very confusing about understanding that we all originated from a fungus, is that we're looking at molds and all the fungus that we have today. It's confusing to see that it all came and started from one original point: plant, animal, and fungus, but it did. So here's the concept, and here's the system. Actually, this is the evidence of the system. When plant life split away and went onto Earth, it started growing something, and it wasn't going to be a tree because there wasn't any soil. So what you had was, and this is 750 mil years ago, you have giant mushrooms. Basically, we have a planet with just mushrooms, like Alice in Wonderland style mushrooms everywhere. That's all there was. And these had to grow and decay, because that is how you eroded all this rock into soil. And only then can you start a root system of mycelia, and then a root system of any plant. And ferns came first, and eventually forestry, and then eventually last vegetables. Weird how that system of plant world evolved in that way. Meanwhile, in the ocean, you have the animal split off, developing sponge, jellyfish, and then fish in general. And the concept, the grand concept, I'm trying to stay out of the details so you can see what's going on systematically, but you have mushrooms building the soil and plant life on Earth, and then you have in the water a vertebrae. The reason why you need plants on Earth and a vertebrae is one day this vertebrae is going to walk up onto land. And what's it going to eat? There has to be plants already there. And this is the system. So you can see that plant life had to split away 500 million years earlier than animals in order to prepare for when amphibious life really occurs. It's a complete and total systematic process. You couldn't do it any other way, right? So this animal who becomes amphibious already has food and oxygen on land ready for it when it arises. It walks on four legs for a while, eventually learns to stand on two legs. And this two-legged animal walks over to vegetables that evolved last. This is the final plant evolution. It walks over and eats a tomato, and in concept really eats itself. So whenever we humans are eating anything, we're really eating off of our own body. the entire global body that is feeding itself. It's called a self-consumption process of transferring energy from the sun to something extremely intelligent.
So you mentioned, so the first thing I would say is, why is this important? Why is it important that it was from a fungus and everything evolved from there? Because as you said, it's a whether these things are facts or not. The question is, well, why is that important? Why does that have a greater importance to understand than maybe we'd previously thought? That's the first thing, and the second thing is about the amphibious creature that sort of walked out of water. Wouldn't that have had to happen in a single generation though? Because one animal would have had to go out of the water, and how would they survive then on land if they were a water-based animal?
Well, you're talking about a millions of years process where the oceans would puddle and trap animals like for thousands and thousands of years. They're trapped, so they can't go back into the ocean. And there's
But
also
wouldn't they die? Wouldn't they die though in that example? If
plenty
they
of them
were
died.
if they were a water creature and they were then on land, how and they were fully water based,
Hmm.
wouldn't they just
Hmm.
die if they came out on land?
Well, they would if there wasn't any oxygen. But you have red oxide soil that produces oxygen naturally, and that's why there's oxygen on Mars. Uh, and then you have the plant life that eventually, that they eventually emit a gas called oxygen. So you have to have that plant life here, preparing for whatever might crawl out of the water. And it's not a civil environment in the water. You are constantly food. It's just a predatory environment. So you're always wanting to get out. And the evidence, the today evidence that proves this is flying fish. If you ever watched a flying fish survive, they would have become extinct if they didn't learn to fly for the 75 feet to save their life. And that is an evolved process. So everything is in the ocean wants to get out. So you're going to want eventually when the entire globe is ready to prepare for this animal, it's going to want to get out to save its life and just to basically that's it. It's just trying to adapt to a new environment to
Does
survive.
that happen through mutation though? So there's one sort of animal that it's like the giraffe, for example, whether it's true or not, with the long neck, and it was the only one that survived. Is that the process, do you think, that causes that?
E- Yeah, everything, including you and I, are completely adaptive beings. We're constantly surviving by adapting to the necessities of food and shelter. And that's all any other animal is doing.
But how does
Reproduction is
how does that happen genetically though? Because let's say you are adapting to a particular environment, how does the body then just decide to adapt over a generation or two or three? Does something inside it say, "Oh, we need to change in order to survive," or is it that the mutated strong survival of the fittest, the one that fits that situation best, is the one that reproduces, which then has subsequent children, etc.? Is that which is the process do you think that is most likely to
Oh,
be
well,
occurring?
it's definitely reproduction because all the cells in not your body, not only your body, but every body, every cell has a memory cell in it, and so it's helping to experience the tragedy and the needs of the world that it's in. It doesn't need any eyes. It just understands that through trauma, uh, it is experiencing these things. So when you reproduce, that animal has embedded in it examples of the environment that it's going to have to do the same thing in. But you're talking about thousands of years. So each time one animal gives birth to an animal, it just has new facets to adapt to and experience. So there's a little bit of psychology that comes with that. And then also you have the mutation of cells trying to build a stronger, longer claw or a longer backbone or more fur or more feathers because it's trying to survive and adapt to that environment. Um, Here's another example of of reverse evolution is what I call it. But the ocean mammals, porpoises and whales, used to be like a fox or a cow. In fact, you see the fingers in the paddles of cows that have 5 fingers. So how did that happen? Well, the reverse thing happened. Once there was land animals, and that became a feeding frenzy on land, then you had animals that went back into the water to survive from being eaten. And this is thousands of years. So they would give birth right there on kind of land and water. Maybe it's 2 feet, 3 feet in, where they can run to 20 feet out into the ocean when their predators came, and then go back onto land to eat a little bit of food. See, but eventually they had to stay in the ocean entirely to survive. And so that blowhole at the top of a porpoise and a whale was their nose. And the more that they would live right there, as you can see right here in the water, they would hide and come up. This is thousands of years. They would give birth this way, they would eat this way, but eventually that nose traveled up to where it became a spout on the top of their head that evolved from having to live right there on land and water for millions of years. So you have a reverse evolution, and also millennials have a new spur on the back of their skull, right on the back of their skull, not on their neck, but on their skull. They have a spur that's a new development from doing what? From staring at their phone like this. So even our own bodies are trying to survive under stress and trauma and new things that we're consumed by, which obviously is the phone. So
You said something earlier about design. Is that essentially a proof that nature is sort of self-conscious in respect of it gives you memory cells, it makes sure that whatever is living, whether it's plant, human, animal, that it is self-adapting in a way that it will go through a process. So, for example, let's use a Microsoft program or ChatGPT. You have iteration one, then 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, and you know that in X number of
mhm,
years there's going to be iteration 20 that is in a,
mhm.
you can sort of predict where it might be because of the input process that creates an output result, essentially. Would you say that's the case from your understanding that this had to happen in order for this to happen, that it's in some way deterministic in that respect?
Yeah, absolutely, because its expansion is also uh, evolution, and you're getting to a place here where you want to know when we're determining this, why, well, why all this, and there's a simple answer. It's called conscious growth. Um, so if you look at it like you are a growth product, but over such a huge long period of time, that your psychology doesn't understand that. In other words, if you could watch your fingernails grow, you would no longer participate with life. You would understand that you're eventually going to be, you know, aging and dying, like just, in a few, in a few weeks. So for your psychology to work, you have to forget that you're actually adapting uh, evolutionarily. So we can talk to each other, straight in the face about how much you and I are evolving right now, and we can embody that idea and become that idea. But when you and I end this talk, we're going to go out and deal with life and hunger and emotional things, and forget that we are actually evolving. And this is kind of a it's kind of a mode of keeping us from living in the state of evolution psychologically, so that we participate and we commit actions that help the entire evolutionary process continue. But why again? Why conscious growth? Because consciousness itself is the greatest concept that there is. If you want to look at all the concepts that are possible, um, being living in the spirit world, that seems ideal to us today because we live in a stressful environment. Just having a nervous system is cold and painful and stressful. So if we think that if we pass away, that's the ideal place, but really you're not doing anything, I don't think, in that state. So being conscious really is the ultimate state. It's temporary, and you're under the gun to produce as much as you can while you're here as a conscious entity. But even more than that, it's about conscious growth. So because consciousness is a static state, what's really going on is that we're growing as a conscious entity. Any input on that?
So is that the end goal then, to be at a stage of ultimate consciousness? So you've gone from single cell organisms and fungus and bacteria to human beings, and who knows where we'll be in the future. So you're saying that this is through a direct process in order to achieve maximus consciousness. Is that essentially what you're referring to?
Yeah, all of this is a terrestrial beginnings of conscious growth. So the ultimate the ultimate thing what's going on from all this evidence is it's about maximum conscious growth. And the reason why you want to look at it like maximum is because you're involved in the process of something that will grow to its maximum. If you just look at it as conscious growth today, and you and me and what we're in today, you're not going to get the clear picture of actually what's going on cosmically. So let's just say you wanted to grow some consciousness, or let's just say you wanted to have more friends that were smart. You can't wave a magic wand and make these people appear. Say you wanted to have some intelligent conversations with smart people, but there weren't any around. So how would you get them? How would you get more smart people? Well, you would have to fool this growth process to occur. So how would you do that? Well, you would find an environment that was dark and cold, because you would have to develop heating sources that would exist for such a long period of time for that psychology to grow. Like I was talking earlier, you don't really cognitively understand 100% of the time that you're actually evolving, because you wouldn't participate with it. So for in order for that,
But wouldn't you just breed the smartest people together and do it that way, like kind of a eugenic situation? If you look at dogs, for example, you breed the best um, uh,
yeah,
offspring with the best, which then through cause and effect creates the better. Is it not just a case of that, saying, well, actually, if you have got genetic issues, let's not breed with you. Let's keep the breeding to an optimal
there's a
future
there's a huge
result.
answer. There's a huge answer to that, because your perspective is terrestrial. And so you're looking at today, current time, evolution, and the purpose for smart people. But really, it's about the end. So you and I one day will not, as a culture, as a human culture, we won't be here. So I want to incorporate the idea that the Earth does end. It ends for sure, and it's on a calendar. It's scheduled to burn. So if you want to look at the conscious growth in that sense, that as long as we're on a terrestrial plane, we are what I call a premature consciousness. It's only when you and I, or a human culture, has developed a separate platform to exist on, whatever that is, but it's self-designed entirely, and self-designs itself in order to live in that self-designed environment, that you can actually call that maturity I'm sorry, that consciousness a
But
matured consciousness.
something can't really design itself. So, for example, you could say to ChatGPT or AI or Excel or whatever, make this for me, and it will make it. But it's within the remit of a system that already exists. So even if your argument is that we self-design, we self-evolve, there is a process within a system that we have to self-adapt within, which isn't really incorporated if that, in that sense.
Well, you're talking about creativity, and That's true. That AI or any other computer is not creating anything that hasn't already been created. It may be innovating and adapting and creating new ideas from previous ideas. So it's not really creating. And that's what's great about biology and organics is that number one, excuse me, there's no failure rate with biology, but there is a failure rate with mechanics, and that's why there will always be separated. And AI is magnificent, but it's just a bigger, better calculator. Even in the 70s, when the calculator came out, all the teachers were all afraid that people were going to be stupid because they didn't have to actually do any math anymore. But it's just a bigger, better calculator.
No,
And
sorry.
and you need to,
What I meant though was that even if it's the difference between biology and mechanics, doesn't really matter. It's still within. It's the system. So you say, let's say something adapts and it evolves, and it's classed as sort of self-improvement or self-evolution to survive. That process still exists in a much wider system that has rules and regulations that this particular creature or vegetation has aligned with. So even though it might seem that it's created something, isn't it just part of a much wider system in which those rules are allowed to happen? Because if you're on a different universe altogether, a plant might just press a button and turn into a tree in 3 seconds, or it might change color to purple. So isn't it just a case of that within this particular universe, these are the rules that allow for these processes to occur?
well, you'll open up a much more detailed argument about biology itself. Um, I can't answer that specifically, but I can say this that there's this thing called mitosis time dimension, and that is the time and temperature of how a cell divides. So it can only do it so fast, and it can only do it so fast under certain temperatures. So that is a constant throughout the universe. So biology is going to be the same everywhere. And that biology is a creative building source. So it's building a brain. It's about evolving a brain to the point where it can actually create its own place to live one day, because the place that originated it is dying. So as soon as the earth is born, it starts dying. That's the way to look at it. This is a system. This is enforces something biological to be creative, to survive that end. That ultimate goal is to survive the end of its birthplace, any planet. So you can see cosmically that there's a big plan about growing consciousness on biospheres where randomly where they may happen, and it's like a cocoon. The earth is just like a cocoon for us. It's just building our smarts to the point where we can ultimately be super smart by creating our own earth, spaceship, whatever you want to call it, away from this, scheduled to burn rock. That is the concept. It's more important to study than the Bible. And the reason why I say that is because if we don't do something about it, we won't be able to take the Bible with us. So you could see the grand concept in a simple form, that it's almost like a chemical reaction.
Yeah,
It's a
cause and
just
effects, isn't it? Causality.
Yeah, that's more like physics, but it's more like chemical reaction, like it's a just add water thing. And so any planet that turns into a biosphere, because that water is there, not vapor, not ice, but water, it's going to turn into an incubated process that hopefully it has those 5 billion years to develop a biology capable of leaving its place. This is the science project we are. There's no doubt about it. This is the science project we are. Who's the scientist and why? These are the bigger questions that can start to be answered. Well, the bigger scientist is, God and whatever interpretation of God you want to say that that is. But the way I look at it is very simplified. Um, so you've been created, correct? Can I ask you that?
Correct, yeah. I believe in creation in respect of everything that exists has to have a creation of some sort. You can't have a house
Well,
without a design. You can't have a house, sorry, a car without a design. You can't have a phone without a design. Exactly that.
and you can't build a house without a tree. So there's a design there.
Yeah,
But
it's the cosmological
you,
argument, isn't it, in philosophy? It's if you found a watch on a beach, you would assume that it's designed because it's so complex and everything works with a function in mind, and the human body and the universe and the systems that are within that DNA, the software, if you want to call it that, the
yeah,
the instincts we have all point towards a level of design, and maybe we don't understand what that design is and how it came about and what the specifics are. But what we can do, and this is where science, quote unquote, basically, and this is what annoys me, is that science is seen as the opposite of creation, but actually, you are proving creation through the use of finding rules and regulations that, for me, are more proof that something exists and not, because otherwise everything would be random. It wouldn't be, as you said, the same across the universe, etc. So that's where I stand on that, really.
yeah, awesome, awesome. But you're saying yes that you yourself was created, so therefore you have a what?
Parents,
Well, no, you have a creator. See, so every every piece of architecture has an architect. So every human being has a creator because they've been created. And for me, that's all I need to know about a God is that hey, I've been created. Wow, it's a great opportunity. But so this creator, I'm expanding into the bigger picture because the more we stay in the details, the less we have something to take home significant in this conversation. So the big picture is just the lifespan of the solar system, our sun. Our sun is born and dies. The creator knows that you and I would just check out anytime that we could because this is painful. We are going to pass away from cancer eventually. We are going to pass away just from a heart attack eventually, even if it's 200 years. So this being the scary future for every single human, we would check out if we knew where we came from. We would just go home now, or eventually we would go, yeah, I'd just rather go home now. So the creator knew that that would be our intention. So he's hiding true origin from us. So we never really can distinguish that true origin to escape. Um, and hidden true origin basically is the design of all the expanding matter that our universe is. So once again, the concoction of the creator developing conscious growth can only do it one way, and that is to find a vacuum environment that's cold so you can have a heating source suspend itself for billions of years. So right, you can't hang it from a pole, you can't hang it from a string, right? It has to be suspended in a vacuum that's very cold and very dark. So you have a heating source, like a heating source for a petri dish, right? To heat up a randomly does happenstance biosphere like Earth long enough so that something through creativity will find a way to avoid death, to avoid inevitable death. And this is one of the fundamental laws of the universe is inevitable death. Otherwise, you would never have any creativity.
It's
It's
a cycle, isn't it? To have life, you must have death. To, you have to. People are, to have a mountain top, you must have a valley. It's the same concept. And one of the things you said there was that we are. It's called epistemic distance. It's made in a way that we will never 100% find out. That's called epistemic distance.
Say that again. What was that? The name?
Do you know you said about the it was made in a way that we will never truly understand?
But you have a term.
Yeah,
I was interested in
it's called epistemic distance.
epistemic distance. That's
It's
a
the
good.
distance between what you know and what you could know, basically. That's and
A
it's done
gauging.
purposefully by life, because it's like going to the library and asking the librarian, why is there not just one book that gives me everything, all the answers? And because that's not the point. That's not how it works, unfortunately. We have to search for answers. We have to do experiments and work things out because life will be
Well,
boring.
now you have fungus theory. So it is one book.
But what? But I don't understand what's the end goal here because it's like okay, well,
The
things have evolved. It's come from fungus to amphibious creatures, and they adapt to survive. I get that. And then we talked about
Mhm.
consciousness. Is there stages of consciousness? So you're less conscious as a plant than as different creatures. What's the sort of? I don't understand the end goal here. And yes, maybe to survive beyond Earth's demise and the solar system, the current sort of galaxy we're in,
it's an
Milky
easy
Way.
answer.
So what? So what is
It's
the?
actually it's an easy answer, really. The creator's trying to get something extremely smart. It's we and I are products. We're grown products of this pathway to getting something extremely intelligent. And I call it maximum conscious growth. See, you can only grow consciously, man. See, first you have to have a brain capable, a hemispheric brain capable of growing consciously. So a cat, even a primate, their brain isn't capable of growing more consciousness.
But I thought you said that they could adapt and evolve.
Yeah, every animal is constantly adapting and evolving to their immediate environment. All the stressors of their physical and mental abilities. Every animal, even a flea today, is adapting to its environment, its stressors of food and reproduction. That's always been going on, but you have to have a brain capable of maximum conscious growth. So when you look at fungus theory, it's you and I are the flea. Just I know that sounds existential, but you and I are the flea. We wouldn't exist without the flea. The flea wouldn't exist without the frog.
It's the whole
Or you,
Alan Watts thing. If a bee and plants need each other, are they essentially the same thing? Because without plants, there's no bees, and without bees, there's
exactly.
no plants. So are they the same thing?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, I get
essentially
referred
what you're
to.
getting at.
Yes. Take any one of those away, and you and I would no longer have this conversation. So if it's one animal, if it's one fungus, what is it for? It's for the growth of a consciousness. Now, this is where the human spore concept comes in to reality for me, because all of these plants and animals, not only the things that exist today, but have been evolving for the last 3 billion years, right? To become you and I means that what's it doing? It's developing a spore from that fungus capable of leaving the earth and causing dysphoria across the galaxy. So you can see the simplicity in that, that in order to get a brain capable of maximum conscious growth, it has to stand on two legs. That is the only brain capable of looking up and leaving. A bear cannot look up and analyze the cosmos.
But
Neither
bears
can
can
an
stand up
ape.
though, can't they?
It's momentarily, it's just for that instance. They stand up, but they're not, you know, they're nowhere near full-time bipedal animals. And neither is a bird, by the way. A bird has a neck and a tail, so it's a teeter-totter. And without that teeter-totter, it wouldn't walk on two legs at all. So that's not considered bipedalism.
But if we were to then leave the Earth, and let's say we did survive the demise of Earth, etc. First of all, would if we didn't get out by the sort of point of no return, i.e., let's say that the Earth was cooling massively and the atmosphere was in decline. If we didn't get out before that point, we'd obviously all die out anyway. Of course, that's pretty obvious. But in terms of the consciousness growth thing, what would us leaving Earth do to our consciousness? Would it do anything? Would it actually revert possibly to
Well,
be de-evolution, as you said?
here's the biological way of seeing that. So in the very beginning, there was like the mother cell, the first bacteria, right? The very first one. And then you have all this life starting, and it turns into plants, animals, and then humans. And then in the end, okay, and think about this thermotime wise, where in the end, what you have is that same bacteria before it dies. So there's the birth of the mother cell, then there's the death of the mother cell. But in between, you have all this life formulating something capable of dodging its own annihilation from from the earth. This is the idea. This is what's going on. It's extremely relevant that this was an intended process to generate a consciousness growth, a conscious growth. I'll say it that way, not conscious, but conscious growth that can create an escape from this inevitable doom. It is the greatest concept that you can conceive.
So you're determinist that all of this is pre-planned and we were meant to go through these levels of this video game, if you want to call that analogy, in order to escape this level and go to additional levels. It was designed in that particular way, and it's the creator, as you say, already knows where we're going to be in 2,000, 3,000 years.
He's after he's in a simple form. This is just a concept, but that individual that created this intended growth process is trying to have a conversation with somebody as intelligent as he is or she. Think about the need to want to have a conversation with somebody extremely, I mean, extremely intelligent. It would take 3 trillion years, and that is the time span in which the universe is calculated to burn out all of its light.
Would we
So
even would the creator even be able to have a conversation? Are we essentially creating God as being anthropomorphic, where we're giving them human characteristics? Maybe there's no such thing as conversation at that level.
well, on that note, verbal communication is estimated to become extinct in 700 years. And if you can imagine why, because anything you could say analog, which is me talking, is so slow of transferring communication that a lot can be at stake in the future. Think about how fast things need to happen for surviving in the future. Just conceive of that idea that you and I would look at each other and know what to do without saying it because there's only one goal in mind. And here comes the incorporation of the end of Earth and enforcing consciousness to grow to that point is that when it's impermeated, when fungus theory is impermeated within the entire human culture, and we understand this, that the Earth is scheduled to burn, and we only have one goal, and that's to send something out, not you and I, but we have to prepare something to leave with the story of all that was here. It's about story. So as things are, we're doomed. Why should we have this important conversation right now? If it's all going to burn, let's go to the beach. Forget about it. Just,
But but
just drop all this.
but then you say that, but then based on your assumptions and it deterministic, then we have no free will anyway. It's all happening by cause and effect. This fungus created
Ah,
this, then so and we have to go there. So it doesn't really matter what we do because we're going to end up there anyway.
okay. Think of the other biospheres in the universe that didn't make it and they burnt up. And let's just say we are now space-faring individuals. We traveled to another solar system and found that planet. And we estimate, wow, how far did they get? before their planet burnt up and they all died. We did some archaeology. We found that they got to AI. Wow, they got to AI, but something happened, and now there's no more civilization. I mean, it's kind of a sad outcome when they could have evolved to the point where they left their own planet. And then when we get to their planet, there they are floating in a spaceship. And their dead planet's there. They're in a spaceship, and we can greet them and say, hey, wow, you survived your death of your planet. Wow, that's fantastic. And now we can share the story. I mean, this is really all we have to look forward to.
But then if species do evolve, and you know you said that they evolve and they want to create consciousness, why have some of the same creatures last or been the same for thousands and thousands and thousands of years?
I'm not clear in your question, but I think just being specific on that.
So, for example, octopus has been around for, I don't know the number, but it's hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years. Why has that not evolved? Why is there certain creatures that, or trees that have been around for 500,000 years? Why do they not evolve?
Look at it more like everything is one animal evolving, plants and animals together. That's the way to really sum up this. If you want to start breaking it down into details, then what we're going to find is another Higgs boson. Oh, great, we found another Higgs boson. What is that determining? You found the final, the original spec that created all the atoms. It's great. We need to know it. We need to explore it, but that's not determining much of anything of the reason for mankind. It's looking at the big picture, not the small picture. So when you look at the evolution of an octopus, you've shrunk it down to one entity, one of the billions that really it is. It's one animal. So on if you're going to have a human type bipedal animal on any planet grow to the point where they can have a conversation like you and I, there's going to be an octopus there. There's going to be all the other animals because it's one single fungal animal. And that one single fungal animal is developing a spore. That spore is the bipedal animal that can create to save itself from the end of its birthplace, the planet.
But I thought you
It
said that every sort of animal within the sea wants to get out at some point.
they want to get out right now. That is the most, a fierce environment to try and survive in. And it's designed that way so that something would eventually become bipedal. If it was the comfortable place to live, if it was the heaven of environments to live in, there would never be any amphibious animals because on land, it would be so fierce that it would grow back into the ocean like a porpoise did. The porpoise is breathing oxygen in it. So a warm-blooded fish. How do you get a warm-blooded fish? It didn't evolve in the ocean. It did originally, and then became amphibious. It became a hairy animal, a kind of a fox thing on Earth, and then it was getting eaten up by all the other predators on land to the point where it had to rescue itself by getting in the water because whatever the predator wouldn't get in the water. See, so the predator forced it back and there were so many predators that fox literally developed, a way to survive in the water to up here at its nose, and it kept diving under the water to survive until that the nose became the spout on top. The reason why I'm going there again is so that you understand what evolution is constantly adapting to is the survival of its environment. And humanity is eventually going to acknowledge that to do that for itself, it has to leave this planet.
Okay, so let's say we've now left this planet. It's I don't know 5,000 BC, and we've now sorry not 5,000 AD rather, not BC, and we've now left this planet, and we've gone to Mars and let's just make the assumptions that all of these places we figured out how to make it habitable. Okay, otherwise this isn't going to work. We've gone to Venus, we've gone to the next galaxy, we've gone to other galaxies, we've gone to
Or
Jupiter, we've
just
gone
your
to
mothership.
Saturn. Yeah, we've gone everywhere. Now, over the course of 100 years, every single human on each of those different places is going to be a completely different species because of the time difference, because of the environment difference. So actually, if we did become a multi-planetary species, we would no longer be a single species anymore.
Once again, the biology is constantly critically trying to adapt to its immediate environment. So that adaptation is a slow evolution all the time, unless you do
But if you're on a planet that has time relativity in on one planet, it might be an hour is 20 years or whatever because of the relativity theory.
right,
So one
right.
on one of the planets, it might be so far advanced compared to the other one by the time they travel to each other that there will be different species by that point.
See, that's cosmic fungus. That's why I look at it like that. You and I and this Earth and the human being has to grow a brain capable. So in other words, that cannot be interrupted, that growth process. So if another life form that's completely advanced, say their planet's gone, they survived, there you have a mothership, and they come to Earth to visit, but we're still apes. This survivor of its dead planet knows where we are in our growth process. It knows not to really contaminate it because it needs to earn it on its own. So you and I have to create survival tools and adapt to our environment as it decays on our own. We can't be helped because if we're helped by another alien advanced life form, then that's like handing a diploma, a master's degree diploma, to somebody in kindergarten. It's a galactic ecology. These aliens aren't here to destroy us; they're here to help us because they understand the fragility of organic life on the level of cosmic existence. And we will too one day eventually see that. Wow, look how rare it is that something stand up on a planet. We need to, as galactic ecologists, really help that become a success. And one huge part of helping that become a success is don't let them know you exist because they have to earn it on their own. That's what a matured consciousness is. We built our own escape spaceship. We did the genetic engineering to ourselves in order to live inside that spaceship on our own. We have to earn it because if you don't earn it, then say 1,000 years down the road, you can't come back to Earth and redesign things. The Earth is gone. So you have to really do it, and I call it eternal self-sufficiency. You have to be able to leave Earth, not only leave it and survive, but do it self-sufficiently forever. So there's two huge things to achieve as humans if we want our story to be told one day.
Yeah, but
And
yeah,
inside that story,
so again, we've gone back to this where we've gone to all these planets, and in a billion years, let's say we were on every single planet in every single solar system. Could that be a possibility? And if so, again, would that discrepancy be from the normal human being like a plant, not very evolved, to one that was like a god essentially, because it's on a planet that's so
yeah,
advanced, they've advanced so fast, and the time difference and all of these sorts of things means that they are now a completely different species, which then comes and takes over all the other planets. And it's survival of the fittest. That's why you have food change and hierarchies. If we wanted to, as humans, we
that's
could
on a
destroy every animal on this planet and just be the only
well,
species.
that's a terrestrial perspective because we have gravity and we're walking on a ball. But once we are a successful, matured consciousness, we are no longer we are in a spaceship.
But you can't stay in a
So
spaceship forever. You have to find life somewhere on a different, like somewhere to
I'll help you
settle on a
out there.
planet.
I'll help you out there. I know it's tough to conceive, But if you and I went to another planet, we would die very quickly. We walked around because our biology is not adapted to all of the viruses and the things on that planet. And in fact, the first the Mayflower, everybody on the Mayflower that came from England to the US all died within a couple of years because of measles and all the things that were here. So that's just a small example of what would happen if we ever went to another planet. And and remember, to survive the end of Earth, we have to do things that we know for sure, right? So we know for sure we have to at least have one spaceship. And what we know for sure is that we have to have at least one person in that spaceship. But we're talking bare minimums here.
Okay, so
Just try
let's play
just
this
try and do
out then.
that.
But let's
Yeah.
play this out then. So that's happened. I mean, one person on the spaceship's not going to be sufficient because as soon as they die, unfortunately, the species dies out. So you'd need at least two first of all. But then, depending on the size of
Well,
the
let me
spaceship,
help.
go on.
I'll
Sorry.
help you out there. Yeah, I just want to incorporate CRISPR and gene uh, editing are it's just starting. Okay, we will be able to make any kind of human being we want in 1 million years from now, if we get to 1 million years from now. So whatever that environment, that spaceship environment is asking for, remember we're adapting to our immediate environments all the time. We will be able to design any kind of human we want for that spaceship because it's demanding one specific type. And it
Okay.
might be that it's self reproductive, single, a non-gendered self reproductive animal. Think about the fragility of space life. You have to design it on the guarantees that you will last another 3 trillion years.
But why would you design if you could genetically design any human being you want? Why would you design them to be in a spaceship? Why would you not just
Because
send rockets and stuff to other planets, work out what human would be the best there, and design that and send them straight there and have a civilization? Bang.
yeah, we have the greatest life there is. We have a lot of help. We have gravity, heat from the sun. We have all these things that really make life fun. I agree. I don't want to live in a spaceship forever. But if your planet's dying, you're going to want to live in that spaceship really bad, really bad. And it's called the necrobiocene. The necrobiocene is that 1 million year process of decay, and everything will start to die slowly. It'll take 1 million years for each animal and plant life form to start dying on the surface of the earth. And as that process happens, mankind goes underground. And this is for thousands of years. We go underground because the radiation is too much. And when you live underground, you're right, you don't have any free will. You are now a salamander. And hopefully, there's enough technology that we can take with us to live under the ground for thousands of years to realize there's no escape except escape. So, underground, we will develop all the technologies, all the gene editing capable of leaving Earth, living in a tin can. And in my book, I call it the Tin Can Man. So, you have a character, the minimal things necessary to survive the end of Earth is a tin can and one man. It's called the Tin Can Man. Yes, I want the mothership, and so do you. And yes, we all want to go to another planet, but we can't guarantee that. In fact, the distance from and the ability to be able to transport human civilization to another planet needs to be something that's not capable because that's an escape. Excuse me. It's a form of escapism instead of doing the work ourselves, in a sense, becoming our own God for our own survival.
But isn't
What?
going into a spaceship that same thing?
Say that again.
But isn't going into the spaceship escapism in itself?
It's survival.
Aren't they the
So
same thing? Isn't that just a sort of a pedantic point in terms of what the wording is?
it's not all the spaceship is ultimately survival. We wouldn't nobody you and I are arguing about it. We wouldn't want to do that. I don't want to do it. We have to. But That's the only thing we know today we can do. We don't know that we can go to another planet. So why would you roll your dice on, maybe there's another planet out there? You can't do that. You have to go, what can we really do? What can we really do? Well, we can really make a spaceship. And if you
But that,
think
but
about
that,
it,
that, that thinking is based on our technology today. Fast forward,
mhm,
you said a million years or whatever. We wouldn't even
mhm.
like spaceships are going to be so in the past. It's like saying 30, 40 years ago, let's take a car and drive to the moon or whatever. We can't even fathom the technology that will be available in a million years. If we're doing gene editing and all of these things, surely we would have something beyond a standard spaceship to be able to travel the cosmos.
Well, there's three fundamental laws in the universe. One is hidden true origin. We talked about that earlier. So you should never find it. Uh, Inevitable death. It's a fundamental foundation. And then biospheric bound, meaning that anything biological has to live inside a biosphere. And that's what a spaceship is. It's a little mini biosphere. So those are fundamental things that you can't change. And with those being the fundamental laws of the universe, if you're going to leave the Earth or any kind of an Earth biosphere, what it's going to be, it's going to be a man-made biosphere. It's going to be another spaceship of some type. Whether it's a huge mothership with 1,000 people in it, that would be ideal, or just one tin can with one man in it. We are forced to do this. This is not. There's no free will to this. This is coming. This is what we have to do now. By chance, we launch onto a comet and we take human civilization onto a comet. You remember that? Remember that a group? Oh gosh, I think it's going on 10 years ago that the comet was passing past the Earth, and they all committed suicide to go on that comet. Remember that? It was
Can't
a
remember.
cult. It was a cult with like 10 people. They all drank this Kool-Aid and died. They wanted to go onto that comet that was passing Earth. Escapism. But I'm just saying, I would love to find the other planet and start fresh, and and there's no pollution there. Whatever idealistic thing you're thinking is just idealistic. You
But
have to
isn't
act.
living in a spaceship and escaping before the Earth uh,
No, no, it's
demises, isn't that
reality.
idealistic? And are you
No,
basically saying like interstellar, yeah? The Earth is no longer habitable. We've managed to send Matthew McConaughey out on this spaceship, and he doesn't go to other planets. We just stay in that spaceship. And if so, where do we
that's
get the
right.
energy for? How do we just constantly travel the cosmos forever without getting caught in black holes and wormholes and all these things, assuming they are actually what people think they are?
If biology is kind, which it has to be kind to its own growth, right? It's not trying to kill its own growth, it's trying to promote it. So you have to enforce these stressors to motivate it, but not kill it because you're just trying to grow it, right? To get to the point where you just suggested, there is time to figure out all these factors. And like you said earlier, there's a lot of technology that hasn't been, developed yet, but those are coming. It's kind to itself to grow, and all those things are answered in time. But I can tell you this, that we are biology. We are fixed to a biosphere of some type. And as our biosphere ends, there's only one concept you can gamble on for sure, and that's a spaceship. And we already have one. It's called the International Space Station. Did you know that there will always be a male and female in space forever?
Just again, like I said, because we need a male and female. The chance of a self-replicating
Today we do.
human is
To,
very
to,
unlikely, I think, at
to,
this point.
Today we do need a male and female, but not as gene editing occurs in the future. Will eliminate the natural reproductive process that we have because
But why would we want to do that? Do we think that we have a better design than nature? You said that everything's designed
yeah,
in a particular
easy
way.
answer.
Do we think the same people who can't even design a system without flaws is better than the male and the female? Because again, in reality, if you've got an asexual being how would it actually reproduce itself? Would it shit it out? Would it, you know,
There,
piss
there's
it
there's
out?
plenty of animals on Earth that already do that, like the earthworm. There's plenty of you could gene edit the earthworm into a human.
But that they're usually like they're not complex creatures. They're not, as you said, high on the consciousness scale. I don't know many that are quite evolved, as you put it, that would do that or would be able
Right.
to because to replicate something complex is very different than a worm.
You would just take a human and slowly change it through gene editing over the next million years. So you could do it. You could literally design one little change at a time. And this is what I'm getting at. Today we already have a male and female in space forever, just in case we self-annihilate here. And if you don't think this isn't a part of NASA plan and government, you're missing something. There's also a seed bank in Antarctica that has not only this every single seed on the planet there, but whatever else they want to put in there, just in case we self-annihilate and there's nothing here, or a comet destroys the Earth again and there's nothing here. That male and female, like Johnny Appleseed, can come down here, not only reproduce humans, but reseed the planet. This is a major concept that a lot of people don't understand that that shows just how critical the planning and security of human race is.
It's
So,
fail-safe, isn't it? You know, you don't all put all your eggs in one basket. You always have something separate in case you need to rebuild again. And I think that's
why,
a
why,
very important
why
thing
wouldn't
to
you do
do.
it? Yeah, you're right. Why wouldn't you? It's the ultimate insurance. And the problem with the International Space Station and humans is that you can only have an astronaut or a human in that space station for 6 months healthy. Even encroaching a year, uh, there are lifelong things that are going to happen to you physically if you stay in that space station for a year. So the whole thing is like, how do you get a human to stay in the space station for a year and then 2 years? We're talking about gene editing. This is what's really going to enforce this. So they're slowly making a tin can man right now. And in the next 100 years, not million, 100 years, they'll have found a way to make a human stay in an international space station for 10 years. And then they'll be able to have one stay there forever. You can't have the best of all worlds. Once you have a human being capable of living in a international space station for 10 years or more, they would evolve and adapt to that environment. Not only just naturally, but with gene editing, they will no longer be able to come to Earth. You have to trade. So then they will no longer be able to come to Earth. We're going to have a space-bearing species entirely reproducing there and giving birth to a whole new stage of humanity, which is the Tin Can Man, which
Do,
is the survival of this dying planet.
do you think we're already gene edited? There is a theory of the Anunnaki who did it to us prior.
Yeah, the Anunnaki. I really like that story, but it's kind of it's an egocentric story. Humans have to have an ego uh, in order to survive and create. But there's not enough evidence of the Anunnakis. There's always been, I think, ancient aliens coming here, but to actually say that we were inbred by them, there's not enough evidence. There is that RN blood that they can't find an origin for. But that's just your mind building conspiracy on things that aren't. It's non-evidence. So you're turning non-evidence into reality, like all kinds of conspiracies. We have to have their spaceship. We have to have the bones of an Anunnaki. Okay, that then you're going to believe something like that. And really, it kind of deflates our own growth process. We didn't earn it ourselves as far as a biological planet. We want to know that we came from apes. We want to know that we invented the spear and the knife and then metallurgy and then guns and then ballistic missiles. We want to know that we earned all of this ourselves. And I think nature wants us to earn it ourselves too.
Yeah, I think with
But
any sort of parent, the creator, you don't want to just give your child $1 billion. You tend to see that with a lot of wealthy people. They said, "Look, I'm a multi-billionaire.
mm,
Unfortunately, my children ain't getting shit," and that's because they understand that it's the character development that creates the person. It's like Jim Rohn once said.
they
You want to make a
understand the
million.
psychological
You
growth.
want to make $1 million, not because of the million, but because of the person you have to become in order to earn that. And I think that's a really great way of putting it.
Yeah, you have to be concerned with your offspring's psychological development, that it's real. And you know, and there's a lot to credit the human, even though free will is limited. The proof of free will for me is the joy of succeeding at creating something for a human. You get this joy, um, and I don't think that who you became or I became is anything of our choice so much. Here's another way to look at free will, the argument of free will. There's an entire alphabet of choices in life. But for some reason, you can only choose between one or two letters. Like you can only choose between A and B. All those other alphabets aren't available for you because you weren't born in a specific time, in a specific area with different stressors. And somebody who is born in a different era might have OP in the alphabet to choose from, but not A and B, not all the other elements. So there's free will on a limited scale, but kind of if you were the creator of all this and you were trying to get consciousness to grow to its maximum, would you leave it up to them? No, like I said earlier, if they left it up to us, we would turn Earth into a heaven. That's what we're trying to do. Humans are trying to make Earth heaven. This isn't heaven. Heaven is where you go when you're not here. So
I
what
don't
is
think I
this?
don't think we're trying to make it heaven. In fact, it kind of is the opposite to some extent.
Well, the consequences are the opposite. But I think the intention for your average family is to like go on longer vacations. That's what insurance is about. It's about living a stressless life. Yeah, we're trying to live our private lives as simply and as uninterrupted emotionally as we can. So as individuals, we're trying to live like life like a heaven. But like you said, it will never be that way because we need the stressors to help us innovate technology to be able to survive the end of Earth.
You,
It really is
you,
just
you,
that.
you can't have a perfect everyone takes holidays anyway. That society doesn't work because how do
Right.
you when you're on holiday, how do you get served for drinks? Someone else needs to work. So you can't really have that. And I think we have this vision of we're gonna have a world where everyone just chills out. It's like the City of Omelas story where there's a perfect society, but there's a little kid suffering locked in this room. And that has to be the case in order for that society to function. Would you allow that? It's basically the philosophical question. And in that, to that extent, it's not whether that is right or wrong. It's that if there's something really fantastic, there has to be something of the opposite nature in order for it to actually be real. And that's unfortunately how the universe works. To have light, you have dark, etc. To have evil, you have to have, or to have a good morality, there
You're
has
you're,
to be
you're talking
evil in order to compare yourself to.
yeah, you're talking about the elements and the environment that it takes to grow a consciousness. Why all this? Why all that you explained? Why? It's already evident that the creator is trying to grow a consciousness to its maximum. And that means that it has to graduate from its terrestrial beginnings and go out into the cosmos where no man has gone before. This really is the reality. And it's hard to be a human today with not all the information necessary to make that distinction about yourself. But when you keep referring to all the details of how things function, yes, you're right, but really it's simpler than that because pretend the earth is not here. That is on the calendar. Pretend it's not here now. And then what do you see? you see at least minimally a spaceship way out by Pluto. Okay, not at the asteroid belt, not at Jupiter, not at Set, Pluto, and you're watching the sun expand into the red giant that it's going to do, and it's going to consume all of the hard rocky planets and then shrink down into a white dwarf. And you're going to watch this from your spaceship, and you're going to brush your forehead and go, whew, close one. This is an absolute reality. This is on the scheduled calendar. Cannot avoid this reality. And it's important for me to get every human to realize this, because then everything starts to make sense. Why is life so hard? What is reproduction about? Why am I confused about where I came from and where I'm going to? It's all answerable once you determine these absolute facts and factors about our future. And to back that up, every 60 seconds in the cosmos, a star explodes. And those are only the stars that we can see. So if you think about it, a star explodes every second or more in the universe. What is that saying? It's saying that our sun's going to explode. And if that is the system cosmically, we can't escape that. We're just one of the stars. In fact, somebody or another life form is viewing our star, looking at it, going, "Oh, that thing's scheduled to explode, on a certain date. I'm going to watch it explode." But here we are rotating around it. So it becomes very natural to see the grand system of getting something to become consciously grown to the point where it can survive it. There really isn't any greater concept than than imposing a condition on something that can generate its own intelligence, earn it itself to survive that inevitable condition.
So we've gone from the initial fungus to evolution, the biology behind it, and we've then invented this technology to get to the cosmic level. Is that fair to say?
And 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 that makes you the spore of the fungus that's left behind to burn. See, humans are the spore. We are the dysphoria of the initial growth of everything that was one life form.
So where does the
And that's
psychology come in? Because that was another part of this that you mentioned. Is it the psychology of understanding that this is what we need to do, or there another point that you're trying to make?
well, psychology is behavior really. So you can detect thinking through observing behavior. Otherwise, you can't detect any psychology at all. Uh, and if you look at the behavior of all the plants and animals in the last 250,000 years, the beginning of dinosaurs and the ending of dinosaurs, you can see the biology pushing towards something becoming conscious enough to leave. By design. It's systematic. And any other planet, if you have something bipedal walking around on there, they had a reptilian life form. Long before them, there was a reptilian life form, and
How do
this
you
is
know? How do you know that? You mentioned evidence before.
because the
Is
growth
it
of
like the Anunnaki that it could be true, could not be true?
no, okay, let's just say Anunnaki are true, but they had on their planet a reptilian life form before their brain was capable of coming here. See, they had an ocean life only for millions of years, and then they had an amphibious life form, then they had a reptilian life form, then they had a quadrupedal life form in mammals. They had to have had some type of primate in order for them to evolve from all of that in that order. It couldn't be very much different at all, because if you study the division of cells themselves, mitosis time dimension is the critical the fundamental and critical machine that enforces that growth over time at a certain amount of time. You can't accelerate it because you can't divide a cell quickly. There's a certain time dimension that that cell will divide, and on anywhere where there's water. So in order to get something to stand up and leave the planet, there had to be all the other life forms that created that brain capable. You remember, we're just trying to grow a brain, starting with bacteria. We're just starting to grow a brain. How do you get that brain capable of building its own spaceship and leaving? Well, you know, basically it has to occur in very much the same way.
Well, I mean, it sounds to me like if this is the case, then AI is going to be a massive help to us to build and design a future outside of the Earth, whether it's on spaceships or other planets. I think that will be because obviously, look, a system's only as good as the information you put in, and obviously, depending on what we give AI, depends on what it gives us back. So, assuming all the information is correct, maybe you can give us a good prediction of where we might be in 50 million
AI
years or whatever.
AI will be a hindrance. It'll eventually be the tool that will kill us because you got to conceive of the advancement of the human mind and the potential for it to survive its conditions in the future. Everything becomes outdated to the point where it's going to like natural reproduction is going to be the end of humanity.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah,
But
I think
you
AI is
have
very
to.
dangerous.
Well, it's just a
Depends if
tool.
it gets a
It,
general
it,
if it gets a general AI that it's conscious because I would define consciousness in some ways as your survival instinct. If
well,
to an extent,
I just saw 2001 again the other night in the theater. I've seen it probably 50 times in the theater. And that's a good example. Is it going to murder us to save itself? That's what you're worried about. Is AI going to keep man from unplugging it? Because that could be its only fear, but it's not emotional.
so it doesn't have to be emotional. There's something called I think it's Rocco's
Logic?
basilisk. Rocco's basilisk. So imagine in
Hmm.
200, 300 years' time, AI is now fully conscious. And what it does is it retrospectively looks back at who helped it to come into existence and who didn't. And it punishes those who didn't and was positive to those who did. So the question is a bit like Pascal's wager, is God true or not?
That's an emotional reaction, though.
No, it's not
See,
because it's based on logic. It's saying it's not emotional. It's saying what helped me get here logically and what didn't. It's the same with anything.
but but
Every emotion is basically a decision. The emotion is what we feel. It's still logic that creates that to happen. Pain is the emotion or the feeling you get because something is injured. So there is an element of logic and computing behind any emotion that you feel.
well, see, we can only be conscious of so much at any given moment, like the human mind. So it relies on your subconscious to emotionally react. So that way, God isn't leaving it up to you and I entirely. That would be disastrous. It's leaving it up to the collective conscious, which your own mind has a collective subconscious that reacts for you on emotion. And I don't ever see a computer or anything non-biological doing that precision thinking. So you're surviving off your subconscious more than you are your actual consciousness.
Yeah, I
You're
mean
you're
now that's
you're
the case, but if you think that we can genetically code humans to be self generating asexual essentially, that couldn't be the case if AI wasn't a lot. As in, if they're both progressing at the same pace, you wouldn't just say AI is going to be exactly how it is today, but we can now be asexual beings. There will be a technological increase across the board. So similar to what you said about, evolving together. Cars will get better, AI will get better, spaceships will get better. We will evolve to be self-generating and self-replicating beings. It can't be just this part accelerates and nothing else does. It has to accelerate on the whole.
yeah, AI knows that it's mechanical. Okay, it's electricity in there, but it knows it's mechanical. It
But if it
also
know
knows,
if it knows it's mechanical, then it will then that means it's sentient. If you can reflect on what you are, it means you're sentient, no?
well, what I'm getting at is that it knows that the survival of humanity has more promise than anything mechanical because it's biological. Biology never fails. And just look at it that way. It reproduces better every time in its environment, and that's a constant. Mechanics always fail. That is another constant. So if AI knows it's got a failure rate greater than biology, it's never going to trust itself for the continuation of itself. It's going to trust the biology that created it
Okay.
for it to be repaired forever. Yeah.
Okay, in that on that basis then, if mechanics fail, why would we want to live on a spaceship and not go to a planet with biology?
Once again, for a human to be able to live in an environment like an international space station, that adaptation takes thousands of years. And then again, to go to another planet and then come from that space state, that spaceship that we arrived in to that new planet takes 1,000 years of adaptation. Otherwise, you're just murdering yourself going to some other planet. Let's just say it's tropical, it's perfect. There's no more big dinosaurs to eat you. Let's just say that there's no, I mean, for us to adapt to a new virus, which we just experienced in the last 10 years, that was quite a curve, wasn't it? Try going to another planet instantly and exposing yourself to thousands of new viruses. They're trying to keep the permafrost from releasing, viruses that have been trapped for, a million or 2 years in the ice. This is a hazard. It is not logical to think that you can go to another planet, even if it's paradise with palm trees and surfy beaches. You're going to die. Look at it like that. You're just going to die. You have to carefully send probes down there back and forth for thousands of years, then genetically engineering your own body to be able to go down there and start adapting to that new environment. That is such a huger task, way huger task than just making a human survive in the International Space Station forever. See, you gotta gamble with what you know, which is not gambling. And you have to start working towards what you know. You cannot start working towards what you do not know. See? So today we have to build that space station, the tin can for the Tin Can Man. Yes, something can eventually supersede that. Like, oh, we found a planet. We landed there. We're doing our surfing. We're reproducing there. We can we can eliminate the Tin Can Man project, or that would essentially be the Tin Can Man project right there that found another place to live. But you can't work towards goals that you are unclear of, like another planet. We don't know that. We don't know, but we do know International Space Station. I'm just bringing things to sheer reality so that escapism, that creative, self-serving kind of view of like, well, I want to go to another planet. I don't want to live in a space station forever. I want to go to another planet. It's self-serving when really you want the human race to continue. So you're adapting to whatever is in front of you in order to do that. And Alpha Centauri would be awesome to go to and survive, but man, that's 100 times harder than just living in a space station
Yeah,
today.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
again, this is just, thought experiments, isn't it? If this
yeah,
happens, what could happen here? And this is where, humans have to be in terms of if this could possibly happen, what are the issues that could arise? What are the possible alternatives? What if this happened? Because that's the only way that we can look at forecasting what may happen and how we can
mhm,
best address it. I mean, we're the only creature that I'm aware of because we can't read minds. We don't know what birds can do and other animals because they communicate without speaking. So you don't know what sort of telepathy they might be using and how they might be thinking. However, we're the only species that I'm aware of that can think vastly into the future, and that
yeah.
obviously
But
helps
just
us to evolve. So. Is there anything that we've not covered, by the way, that you feel that we should have or would like to sort of get in there to the conversation?
Well, we kind of tapped on everything except for um, the void of psychosis, which is psychology. The void of psychosis is understanding that you do not know where you came from before you were born. I don't mean your parents, I mean literally your soul. Where did it come from? Where does it go to? There was an animal called Homo erectus, and then there was Homo habilis, and then there was Australopithecus, which was just basically a walking monkey full time. But eventually, from standing up, the brain is going to develop the prefrontal lobe, which is the area responsible for planning and time. Until that part of the brain in the human being grows, because you'll see in Homo erectus, it's pretty flat. There's no forehead, basically. So that part of the brain isn't there to establish time. Once you can establish time, and I would say that's when Homo sapien came around, you were able to become self-conscious, self-aware of yourself as a single entity and not a group. And once you can do that, then you can apply guilt. And the reason why guilt is important is because that's when you become responsible for your actions. And that's when the void of psychosis occurs in a brain. And the void of psychosis means like, oh my gosh, I don't know where I really came from. So I'm not a god. I was created by something. And that causes a psychosis. And psychosis means not reality. Reality means not psychotic. Reason why it's important to see humanity as a psychotic animal is because that's where creativity really comes from. It comes from imagining. If you imagine something, you're being psychotic because it's not reality, right? So that's how inventions occur. So the void of psychosis is a part of yourself you will never be able to determine for real. Everything else is concrete as far as your identity. You know, you're born, you're hungry, you reproduce,
I
there's
think that's
gravity.
that's one of the issues with being more intelligent. The more intelligent people actually think about things too much, and that's why you get this psychosis. Whereas other animals, they just live in the present very simply. They need food, exercise, sleep, sex, all these sorts of things, and they don't really think about who created us. Unfortunately, because we are
They
quite
don't. They
intelligent
do.
beings, we start thinking about, because we are creative beings also, we understand, oh, we built this car. Wow, awesome. We created this book. Awesome. We created this airplane. Awesome. But then, if that's the case, and we are as we are, something must have created us. And I think that's where this comes from. And again, it depends on the secondary questions you ask. Do you really care? Some people don't. Just live your life. Some people do really care. And they care to such an extent as to exactly the attributes of said God or not said God, evolution or not evolution, etc., etc., etc. They are so adamant that this is the exact right way that we've came here or arrived here. But to be honest,
Sure.
most of them actually have very overlapping arguments, and it's the arguments of which of those arguments is the right one that we tend to see in society.
Well, you're specifically talking about denying evidence, and this is a very that conscious entity that would deny evidence is first of all surviving differently. Their psychology is trying to survive. Period. So denying evidence is important for the animal to survive. So it should be able to do that. Denial is kind of a reality buffer until you're ready. And that's important because you don't want to destroy that psychological entity. You want it to grow and discover on its own time basis. So you can deny evidence all you want. It doesn't mean that it's not real. Evidence is real. And and those who can't apply it shouldn't until they're ready. But those who can are going to be significant in the advancement of the technology necessary for mankind to survive the end of its planet.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you have to plant a tree that you're not going to see the benefit of. And that's what humans have to do. You know, you have to maybe plant something that you're not going to see the benefit of. Maybe one generation, two generations, five generations are going to see the benefit of the tree that you planted, or the
Hmm.
charity that you started, or the book that you wrote, whatever it's going to be. So yeah, I mean, great points thus far. Is there any final points you want to make before we sort of give you information as to where they can find you and where they can read your books, etc.?
Yeah, my book's for sale on Amazon, a Fungus Theory of Conscious Growth, and I have a website, and I'm just starting out, and there's more books on coming out, like Cosmonosis is a simpler explanatory reason for everything. But look, let's simplify this. Um, Now is always the most important moment for any human to be alive because that's when you can perform action, and action lasts forever. Once you're gone, you can no longer perform actions. So it's always the now moment that's important. But you on your now moments and your actions are inside a huge pool of billions of actions made by humans. So realize that you're a part of a main collective culture. I would call that a fungus because we all originated from fungus, and because mankind is the only entity capable of surviving the end of its earth, it's the spore of that large fungus. I'm just trying to simplify things in one grand scoop. If that's what's going on, it's all for the growth of consciousness to its maximum in a cold, dark vacuum we call the universe.
Awesome. So yeah, check him out on Amazon. Is there any other places, websites or anything, or podcasts that you've been on or anything?
Yeah, yeah. There's plenty of podcasts on my website, and this one will end up on there too. And yeah, I'm just doing podcasts, writing books, and getting out there.
I mean,
I
these
appreciate you
conversations
letting
are
me do that.
awesome. I love these kind of conversations where there can be such a discourse and sort of agreements in some ways, but also challenges on others. And at the end of the day, as you said, we're here to find the truth, and discussions are a great way to get there. So thanks very much for being a guest on the show, Mark.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been great. Every time I can talk it's a great opportunity for me. So I thank you.